Now, in January this year, African leaders met in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, during the 24th African Union Summit to discuss the Year of Women's Empowerment and Development in Africa. For some insights into what this really means and how it will be achieved, I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Chairwoman of the African Union Commission. Dr. Dlamini Zuma, welcome to Africa 54. First, it's so significant that the theme, the Africa Union Summit, empowering women, especially is at a time when a woman is at the helm of the Africa Union Commission. So what is it that was supposed to be the purpose of this particular theme in this year?
Well, the purpose is really to give momentum to the question of equality and women's empowerment and development. As you know, there are lots of policies that are in place, but we want to give a push for their implementation. And also within Agenda 2063, we want certain things to be done in the first 10 years that relate to women, that can change women's lives. Mm-hmm. To give an example, in agriculture, because 75% of women in Africa are in agriculture, we have decided that we are going to look at land rights. We're going to look at taking the handheld hoe to the museum and replacing it with more modern technologies. We are having conversations with financial institutions to see how women can be included in and have access to finance for agriculture, for business, and for anything that they need, just like men. We are also looking at getting women into positions of decision-making in all areas of human endeavor, starting with parliament, cabinets, judiciary, and so on.
Yeah. Now, the question that many people ask is, the African Union is a body comprising of all these over 50 countries. What structure is there in place right now to ensure that when you have such a beautiful concept that every individual country can actually adhere to that and try to implement some of the policies that you're discussing?
Well, there is a protocol that has all this, but now we're putting it into programs. We are going to be launching a gender index in June, where we will take a number of indicators and then we will look at them and see where each country is. But the important thing about that is that those that are doing well will be able to share with their colleagues how they've managed to do so well in a particular area, and so that those who are lagging behind can also know what strategies other people have implemented.
Now, is this a kind of perceived as perhaps a softer strategy or objective? Because many times the African Union is faulted with being ineffective in implementing some of the objectives that it sets for itself, whether it is in the political sphere, economic sphere, whatever the case may be. What will be different this time that will make people believe that it can be achieved?
Well, if you look at other areas, let's look at malaria, AIDS, Ebola. The AU, together with member states and other agencies, have worked very well. If you look at malaria, every year there are awards for those countries that are doing well on malaria, whether it's on policy, improvement, implementation, cutting down on the number of cases. And very interestingly, when countries don't get the award, they go back to say, why aren't we getting it? Where are we going wrong? So we've seen that that has worked. But also, Agenda 2063 is not a government program. It's a program that was developed by and with the citizens. And that's the policies that we're talking about are things that citizens has asked for. So that's what is different also, because they know what they want, they know what's in it, and they will be making their governments accountable
And that's the hope. But many times, actually, citizens come up with very brilliant ideas, which to many on the ground, they say governments undermine either through bad policies or just the bureaucracy. An example is in the area of agriculture. The debate has been going on forever about empowering women to own land. We know that most men are actually great and big commercial farmers. You see them yielding and kind of giving more power to the women?
Well, for instance, in Ethiopia, which was like that before, now they've got a legislation that has given land rights to women. And so that's why we want them and others who have done so to share and say what strategies did they implement to get the society to accept land rights for women. So I don't think we should be dwelling on the past. We're looking in the future. And Agenda 2063 is a practical program, and it will be implemented because it has to be implemented by citizens themselves, by governments, by regional, by the AU Commission as well. So I'm quite positive.
Yeah. And it's good you talk about, looking and focusing to the future. But when you look at like a story we had of this thousands of people trying to escape the continent of Africa, go to Europe, and many are dying. Some of them are women and girls. What would you say about this, especially given that they're running away from poverty and insecurity?
Well, the important thing about what we are trying to do is that first we have identified that investing in our most precious resource is the most important thing. That is our people. But investing in young people in particular means health, means education. Because once they've got skills, they will either create jobs or get decent jobs. And we're not just saying it and leaving it there. I was in Dakar not so long ago, where most of our universities and people who are interested in higher education were having a summit where we were looking at all those things practically. What can we do to make sure that our young people have the relevant skills that will allow them either to be part of the economic development, but also to be drivers of that economic development. So you have to say, this is what we want to do, but then look at the various systems that will feed into that. Yeah. And then you can say, yes, we will succeed or we'll fail. In my view, we are looking at that. There is a group of universities under RU Forum who are looking at agriculture in particular. There are alliances of universities that are looking at PhDs. So there is work in different areas to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Yeah. But of course, it's not something that will bear fruit overnight. It's something that will take time, but the first steps have to be taken. Yeah. And then we know once we are taking the steps that indeed it will happen. Now, but also we have seen, if we look at Ebola, what did you guys say? 1.4 million people will be infected by January. Did you see that? You didn't.
Didn't.
Because we came together, the international community came with infrastructure, but infrastructure wasn't enough. But Africa mobilized, within Africa, practically we mobilized, we got hundreds of health workers to these 3 countries. Now we can see we've turned the corner. So I think if we are practical and do things, instead of looking at the past and saying in the past we never did it, but we did it this time.
A very quick question here. You know, one of the things Africans want to do is to achieve unity, love for each other. We've been experiencing things like in South Africa where there's so-called xenophobia, where the communities in South Africa feel like they have a problem with those who are coming into the country, perhaps to benefit from the economic state of the nation. What's your thought of that?
Well, first of all, South Africa is a very important part of Africa, and it has to be home to Africans, just as South Africans are all over Africa in various, whether business, whether doing this or the other. And I think it would be important not to say communities in South Africa. There are elements, because those elements do not have the support of the rest of the community. And it's important to have a dialogue to make sure that people understand that South Africa will always be a diverse country, will always not only be diverse in terms of South Africans, but of people coming from Africa and all over the world. And it's unacceptable, whatever the challenges that may be faced, it's unacceptable that people are attacked, they are killed. It's totally unacceptable.
And I hope someone out there will listen to you.
Thank you.
And live in peace with the neighbor. Thanks a lot, Dr. Dlamini Zuma,
You're
for joining
welcome.
us today.
Thanks for having us.
Well, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma is the chairwoman of the Africa Union Commission.